Hello friends of the channel, welcome to a new video on treasures with history and metal detection. This time I bring you a short documentary about the most famous prisons, some that are in operation to this day and others that have closed and today are part of the past and converted into tourist attractions and hotels. Number 1. Tuol Sleng Prison, Cambodia. Today a museum, a memory of the horror. The walls of Tuol Sleng, a security prison used by the Red Gemmer, have witnessed countless atrocities. It now serves as a reminder to humanity of the havoc caused by violence. The former prison, now a museum, helps us not forget the horrors of the past and try to be better. Unfortunately, in the history of humanity there are certain cruel, ruthless and bloodthirsty moments, and it is everyone's instinct to want to forget them once they are over. However, it is necessary to remember and think about these events so that they can be avoided in the future. Number 2. Kilmainham Gaol Prison, Ireland. Today a museum, the most famous in Dublin. Kilmainham Gaol Prison is more than a building. This prison preserves much of the history of Ireland, since most of the leaders of the rebellion that would later lead to the birth of the Republic of Ireland were imprisoned there. Not only that, Eamon de Valera, who would later become President of Ireland, was a tenant of this prison. Kilmainham Jail not only has a great presence in history, it also has a great presence in film. Its hallways and especially its Victorian room have appeared on the big screen many times. The Master Khan was filmed there, starring Michael Caine and Michael Collins with the performance of Liam Neeson. Needless to say, despite his role, Michael Collins was never imprisoned in this prison. Number 3. Mugenda Prison, Rwanda. Number of inmates, 7,000. One of the worst prisons in the world. Life in prison is anything but simple, but it is definitely not as complicated as in Mugenda Prison, formerly known as Gitarama Prison. The prison was built to house 400 inmates, but in reality there are more than 7,000. There is not enough space and the prisoners have less than half a square meter to live in. In addition to the lack of space, this extreme degree of overcrowding brings with it dire consequences. Each prisoner has only one meal a day, which leads to fights over food. This prison is the only one where cases of cannibalism have been reported due to lack of food. Number 4. Santé Prison, France. Number of inmates, 920. The most infamous prison in France. The Santé Prison, opened in 1867, is infamous for its history of riots and violence, as well as several health problems stemming from the fact that inmates are only allowed to bathe twice a week. Add to this the poor conditions in which the cells are found, and you have a recipe for disaster. Between riots and escapes, the history of this prison is full of problems and violence, even in its early years, since public executions were carried out by guillotine until they were prohibited in 1939. Number 5. The Colombia Model Number of Inmates, 2007. The most violent prison in Colombia. After its founding in 1960, La Modelo Prison in Bogotá, Colombia, has continued to be the center of controversy and violence. Several riots and escapes have occurred within this facility. Curiously, the guards do not carry firearms even though the inmates, in some way, do have access to them. This prison has two wings, the North Wing and the South Wing, in which two groups that definitely do not get along are imprisoned, which makes the common spaces of the prison more battlefields than recreation spaces. The hostility experienced within this prison has cost many people their lives and makes the model the most violent prison in Colombia. Number 6. Danlí, Honduras. Number of inmates, 700. The worst prison in Honduras. Although the problem of overcrowding is unfortunately common in many prisons around the world, at Danley it is much more than just a problem. The prison was built for 400 inmates, but there are 700 inside the facilities. The problem is such that the guards preferred to arm the inmates themselves so that they themselves could control the situation inside the prison. This prison has become better known in recent years, since journalist Paul Connolly, while filming the documentary Inside the World's Toughest Prisons for Netflix, spent a week in this prison that has been called by many as hell on earth. Number 7. Mendoza Prison, Argentina. Number of inmates, 1,600. The worst prison in Argentina. Living conditions in Mendoza prison are extremely bad. In addition to overpopulation, there is a serious problem with hygiene and living conditions in this prison. Mendoza, which was built for 600 prisoners, has 1,600 and most of them sleep on the floor in 4 square meter cells. In addition to this, the prisoners live among their own filth, being forced to relieve themselves wherever possible. Given the conditions, it is not surprising that the Mendoza prison is fertile ground for riots. Number 8. Anísio Jobim Penitentiary, Brazil. Number of inmates, 1,600. The most violent riot occurred in Brazil. The Anísio Jobim prison in Brazil witnessed one of the most atrocious riots. But this disturbance was not caused by bad living conditions, which exist, or by overcrowding, which also exists there. No, it was caused by a fight between gangs. The two gangs are the Northern Family and the First Command of the capital. During the conflict, the former attacked the latter, causing a riot during which many prisoners lost their lives in horrible ways and others escaped in the tumult. Number 9. Sabaneta Prison, Venezuela. The Sabaneta fire and Sabaneta massacre occurred. The Sabaneta prison was a prison famous for its many problems of overcrowding and violence, which led the place to suffer from many internal problems that did not help contain the violence that was generated behind its walls. The violence prevailing within the facility reached its zenith on January 3, 1994. During the so-called Sabaneta fire, caused by a fight between groups of prisoners, 150 prisoners lost their lives. But this was not the only incident that occurred in this prison that is now closed. In 2013, what is known as the Sabaneta massacre occurred, where many prisoners lost their lives during the 48 hours that the riots lasted. 10. The Tullianum Prison, Rome, the oldest in Rome. The Mamertina Prison, also in Latin Tullianum Prison, is located below the Church of San Giuseppe dei Falegnami. This old prison, which can now be visited, had many of the enemies of the Roman Empire within its walls. The prison consists of 2 levels. The Tullianum, which is located at the bottom and is the oldest, and the upper level, known as the prison. Among the famous prisoners who passed through this prison, one of the most important was Vercingetorix, Prince of Gaul. In addition to this, the Tullianum is also an important site for the Christian faith, since tradition says that the apostles Peter and Paul were imprisoned there. Number 11. Mamula Island, Montenegro, prison during World War II. Located in the Adriatic Sea, the island of Mamula is known for the fortification that occupies most of its surface. This fortification was designed by Zarma Mulat in 1853, hence the name of the island. The structure was very important, as it strategically protected that part of the Adriatic coast. In 1942, during World War II, the fortification was converted into a prison by Mussolini. During this time, the prison was known for serving as a detention center, and there were even dozens of documented deaths. After World War II, the island was abandoned. Number 12 Fuchu Prison, Japan. Number of inmates 2842. Educational prison. Fuchu Prison opened in 1935, after Tokyo's main prison collapsed during the 1923 earthquake. During World War II, Allied forces were held inside this prison. Currently this prison has changed a lot, and its main focus is the reintegration of inmates into society. In this prison it is mandatory to study and work. The inmates work 8 hours a day and then dedicate their hours to their studies. The important thing about this is that the prisoners themselves can choose which subjects to take. At the end of the day, inmates have free time that they can use participating in different sports tournaments. Number 13 Spike Island, Ireland, the Alcatraz of Ireland. Originally a Napoleonic-era fort, Spike Island was converted into a prison in 1847, during the Great Irish Famine, in response to rising crime and poverty. After this it was closed and became a military base again, and years later it reopened as a prison in 1916. Due to its historical significance, having served as a prison for almost 400 years, Spike Island is one of Ireland's most visited tourist attractions. This has earned it the title of the Alcatraz of Ireland due to the geographical similarities between both islands and their importance as historical prisons. Number 14. Santo Stefano, Lazio, Italy. Riots in the Panopticon. The Santo Stefano prison is a complex built in the 18th century with the idea of the Panopticon, which is the construction of prisons in which inmates do not know if they are being observed or not, which should encourage good behavior. However, in the Santo Stefano prison, this principle did not prevent riots from occurring. The first was 2 years after the prison opened in 1797, with another disturbance the following year. But the biggest one occurred in 1860, when the inmates took over the prison and created their own republic, the Republic of Santo Stefano. The prisoners even established a senate and rules, until Italian troops regained control a few months later. Number 15. Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia, United States, Al Capone Cell. Considered by many the most historic prison in the United States, Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia was once the most expensive prison in the world. It opened its doors in 1800 with the idea of being the first penitentiary that inspired inmates to feel repentance instead of punishing them. The prison was in operation for 140 years and was home to many of the most famous criminals of the time, such as Slick Willie, the bank robber, and a man who needs no introduction. Al Capone. Al Capone's cell in this prison is famous for being very luxurious when the rest of the inmates were murdered. It is located in the Park Avenue section of the prison. Number 16. Uragancho Penitentiary Establishment, Peru. Number of inmates, 2,500. The most populated prison in Peru. Overcrowding is a common problem in prisons around the world, and the Uragancho Penitentiary Establishment in Peru is a perfect example of this. It is a penitentiary for men located in the San Juan del Uragancho district. It began operating on December 14, 1974. The overcrowding problem in this prison is very big. The facility was built to house 2,500 inmates, but in recent years this number has reached 10,044, which makes the overcrowding percentage 400%. Number 17. Pondok Bambu, Indonesia. Number of inmates. The Stranger. A luxury prison based on corruption. Corruption within prisons is an unfortunate reality that inmates and authorities have to fight with every day. In the Pondok Bambu prison in Jakarta, this reality is taken to the extreme. In this prison the inmates, rich enough to pay bribes, live a life of luxury behind bars. This network of favors was discovered after a surprise inspection of the prison, where a prisoner was found while receiving a laser beauty treatment. Among the privileges that corruption gave these inmates are having television, air conditioning, even karaoke. Number 18. Model Prison of Barcelona, Spain. The oldest prison in Catalonia. The Barcelona Model Prison, at 113 years old, is the oldest in Catalonia. After so many years of history as a penitentiary, the facility closed its doors in 2017 as a prison, but reopened them to be a tourist attraction. But this expression will soon become something completely different. The model prison will be demolished to make way for a school. And this is just the beginning. The development plan will transform the entire prison not only into a school, but also into a senior center with green areas, among other things that will greatly benefit the surrounding population. Number 19. Cebu Detention Center, Philippines. Number of inmates, 7,000. Inmates who dance. The last thing you would expect to come out of a prison is a viral video, but this was the case at the Cebu Detention Center, a maximum security prison in the Philippines. In 2007, the jail's director, Byron F. Garcia, uploaded a video to the internet of the prison inmates dancing to the rhythm of Thriller. This video went viral and the eyes of the world were on the Cebu Detention Center, which led to the inmates continuing to choreograph to different songs. The so-called CPDDRC dancing inmates even inspired other Philippine prisons to follow in their lively footsteps. Number 20. Tremembe Prison Complex, Brazil. Number of inmates, 7,000. Known in Brazil as the famous prison. The famous prison is known for the quality of life of its inmates. Within its walls are criminals who have committed serious crimes that have led them to be on television and magazine covers, hence their terrible fame. The food in this prison is prepared by some of the inmates and is of high quality. Inmates can take music classes or learn languages, as well as participate in recreational activities and sports and chess tournaments. This prison is also famous for some politicians who have served their sentences in the facility. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I cordially invite you to subscribe to my channel Treasures with History and Metal Detection. Share with your friends on social networks and comment. Activate the notification bell so you do not miss the other parts of this interesting video. See you soon.